Hello and welcome to the Izzy Games channel. This is Josiah, and I've got opinions on gaming stuff. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. Spoilers are everywhere. Spoilers are everywhere for this game. I'm feeling bad that I'm getting spoiled in certain parts of the game, but the spoilers that we've been getting haven't really been like the full thrust of the story or anything that really happens in the game. We still, even with all of these spoilers, we still don't quite know what's going on in the game. Not everything, not all the angles. So, but that is a fair spoiler warning. I am going to be talking about spoilers in this video. If you guys don't want to hear spoilers, well, more accurately, spoiler, click off right now. Don't be here. Get out, okay? Go somewhere else. But if you want to hear my speculation about this one particular spoiler, stay. One spoiler that is incredibly important. In Breath of the Wild, there is an area called Arbiter's Grounds. Yes, like the Arbiter's Grounds in Twilight Princess. And in Arbiter's Grounds, there is the Mirror of Twilight, which has been shattered. Mirror of Twilight. Now, I knew this game had some sort of connection from the very beginning to Twilight Princess. I kind of shrugged it off. I'm like, okay, if they're going to have a wolf link in there, it's just going to be an Easter egg or something. But it looks like it's a lot more significant than that. Oh my goodness. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean for the timeline placement? Well, first of all, let me get this clear. I personally have not figured out whether or not the Mirror of Twilight has been utterly shattered, like it was at the end of Twilight Princess, or whether or not it was just partially shattered, like it was in Twilight Princess, when you had to find the different pieces. I'm not entirely sure. All we know is that there is a place for the Mirror of Twilight, and it's not there. It's shattered. So, could it be that it's not that it's just there, and you know, this isn't after Twilight Princess? It's true. But let's get into, there are three possible things that this could mean, okay, from the information that I have so far. Three things. One, that my theory is still correct. One possibility is that it's after all those things. Clearly, the Mirror of Twilight had existed before Ocarina of Time, and so it makes sense that it would still be there. Doesn't quite make sense why in the Downfall timeline it's shattered. Perhaps there's something that happened in the Downfall timeline to cause it to shatter. We don't know. We are absolutely clueless as to why this is here. So it's possible that it's shattered in the Downfall timeline and in the Child timeline. We just simply don't know why it was shattered in the Downfall timeline. So it could still be in the Downfall timeline, which is really cool because the Arbiter's Ground still exists in the Downfall timeline. There's a lot of things that still exist from the Child timeline, or rather things that existed before Ocarina in the Unified timeline in the Downfall timeline, which is cool to see, just to see different Easter eggs and kind of say, yes, there are still items that exist in other games that can exist in other timelines simply because of the Unified timeline prior to Ocarina of Time. I'm going to be leaning more towards that explanation simply because in the holiday season, we're going to get some DLC that's going to have a new unique story. If there is a shattered bit of the Mirror of Twilight in the Arbiter's Grounds, then maybe, if it's in the Downfall timeline, we will get the explanation as to why it was shattered, or maybe we'll go to another dungeon collecting the pieces of the shattered mirror, and maybe we'll get to see Midna again. That would be really awesome. But of course, Midna would not be. She would be in that world, but she wouldn't quite know you. I don't think she would. But regardless, so that's a possibility. Another possibility is that This is a unified. This is a unified thing that's going on. So perhaps these timelines have crossed somehow. Maybe when they dug deep, they found a time portal from Skyward Sword. Maybe there's some sort of interdimensional travel here. We don't know. We honestly have no idea. My guess, if this is going to be a unified timeline, is that these two timelines, the same thing happens in both the timelines to cause both timelines to kind of converge, right? Which is a bit technical, but it's a bunch of timey-wimey kind of stuff. If the same events happen in two timelines, really they become unified into one timeline, which would make sense why different clothes would be different outfits, different Link outfits would be in this timeline, if that is in fact the case. But the one, of course, that is on everybody's mind, it is actually at this point a bit more likely than any other option, even though I'm not going to go with it. I'm going to stick to my guns. But what seems to be more likely is that this is in the child timeline, which nobody really saw coming. I mean, people were like, okay, this is possible that it's in the child timeline. There are, you have Wolf Link in here. You have bits of Hyrule Castle that look exactly like the Hyrule Castle in Twilight Princess. So a lot of people were like, oh no, this is in the Downfall, or this is in the child timeline. Some people said that, but most people said it was in the Downfall timeline, including me. Now it's looking like it might be in the child timeline. If this is in the child timeline, there's no reason to explain why the mirror is shattered. The mirror is shattered clearly because Midna shattered it. But you say, well, then this would either take place between Twilight Princess and Four Swords Adventures, or it would take place after Four Swords Adventures, which I would agree with. There's a couple hundred years that go on between Twilight Princess and Four Swords Adventures, which, if that's the case, if that's what actually happens, there's a couple things. Of course, when I first saw this information, I went to Hyrule Historia and I looked at Four Swords Adventures and figured out what the whole story was with that. Some very compelling things. Now, it's possible that the Gerudo, because the Gerudo are confirmed to be in this game, you had that Gerudo-looking lady. If the Gerudo are in this game, they weren't in Twilight Princess at all. So it's strange to see them even exist. It's possible that they existed in some other part of the world, and we're going to find them in some other part of the world in Breath of the Wild. That's possible. But it's possible that because in Breath of the Wild, if the Gerudo exist and Zelda just called people of different nations to be rulers or to be champions, which is what we saw in some other area, if that's the case, then it would make sense as to why Zelda didn't choose the Gerudo to be part of that decision. Apparently, there had been a squabble between the Gerudo and the Hylians due to the Civil War, right? The Hylian Civil War, where the Gerudo went against Hyrule and everything it stood for. And in Four Swords Adventures, the Hyrule Historia makes specifically the statement that the Gerudo and the Hylians, they are now at peace, right? And they begin to build a peace. Perhaps the cooperation with the Gerudo in Breath of the Wild will help that peace come along and lead to the events of Four Swords Adventures, which is a very possible thing. There's something also in Four Swords Adventures that is there. It's called it's the Dark Mirror, or the Mirror of Darkness or something, a question I had before, which causes Shadow Link to exist. Maybe that's why Shadow Link is in the game. And also, it creates monsters, right? Which, if the Blood Moon has anything to do with the Dark Mirror, that would make sense. Maybe the Dark Moon shines light off of the Dark Mirror and everything gets produced again. But more importantly, malice. right? Malice, if Malice is just pure darkness and like darkness gook, it would make sense if the Dark Mirror exists in this game, in Breath of the Wild, how Ganon became Calamity Ganon simply by absorbing some sort of darkness. The Dark Mirror, the Hyrule Story says that it has no connection to the Dark World in Link to the Past, but it also says that its connection to other magical mirrors, such as the Mirror of Twilight, those connections are unknown. So in Hyrule Historia, they basically go out of their way to say, we don't know whether or not the Dark Mirror in A Link to the Past or Four Swords Adventures is linked to the Mirror of Twilight. If this takes place after Four Swords Adventures, if the Mirror of Twilight and the Mirror of Darkness actually exist in the same world, holy crap. There might be a connection there. I don't know what that connection would be, but that's amazing. Oh my goodness. Oh man. So lot of speculation, a lot of talk. That's my speculation. Maybe it's after the events of Four Swords Adventures. We know Vati was resurrected in Four Swords Adventures. And also another thing that we know real quick is that Ganondorf is reincarnated in Four Swords Adventures. So we know for a fact that Ganondorf is somebody else who becomes reincarnated at one point. Which, if Ganondorf's ancestor was the original hero and Impa's ancestor was the original princess, that might make sense as to why they're reincarnating. So that's all my theory. That's all my theory thoughts and about this topic. If you guys have any kind of thoughts about what I said or about this new information about the Twilight Mirror existing in Breath of the Wild, which is going to be awesome to see, by the way, mention it in the comments. Let's have a conversation about this. I kind of want to, I'm trying to predict things and see if they come true. So, thank you very much for watching, you guys. See ya.